Howdy, folks. Today I'm going to talk about something that I hear all the time. People ask, how do I find a good story? Well, here's the truth. Your life is literally made of stories. You just haven't learned to recognize them yet. People seem to be under the illusion that they don't have any, quote, good stories. By the end of this video, you're going to understand how to look at your life differently. My name is Ladi Loera. I'm a storytelling teacher and coach in Austin, Texas, and I run a storytelling school called the Storyteller Studio. And I love storytelling. So let's talk about it. First, let's bust this myth of the big story. You don't have to be a fireman that runs into a burning building to save a box full of kittens to have a story that is worth telling. Not every single movie is Die Hard. In fact, the best stories are not about these giant moments in your life. Now, I want you to think about stories that you remember, stories that you can still recall to this day. Now, I'm sure some of them will have some dramatic events that happen to them, but just as many will have very small, quiet moments that you still reflect on, that still matter to you for some reason. It could be a story about an everyday conversation with a dear friend, or a surprise conversation with a stranger that you met at a bus stop. It could be that moment that you finally decided to quit your job, even though you've been wanting to quit it for years, or a misunderstanding with your family. Now, what makes these stories work? Well, it's not the size of the event. It's what was at stake emotionally. It's the internal journey that keep these stories ruminating in the back of our heads. So stop waiting for something big to happen to you before you decide you have a story to tell. Your stories are already here. They are hiding in plain sight in your regular, everyday life. You just need to know where to look. So how do you find these moments? Well, here are 3 questions I want you to consider when you're looking for a story. The first question, when did I change my mind about something important? Think about beliefs that you used to hold, that you don't hold anymore. Moments when your understanding of your place in the world changed because of a conversation you had with someone, or something that happened at work, at home, at school. Maybe you developed a new definition for what love means to you. And maybe you had an assumption about a person you met and you found out that you were entirely mistaken. Many years ago when I lived in California, it was my first job there. I got a job working at a place called Out of the Closet Thrift Stores. It was my first night on the job, and my boss, Kim, for no reason I can understand, decided I didn't need any training and left me there in the store by myself with keys so I can lock up. But I don't know what's going on. So I'm kind of trying to train myself as I'm going about everything that I'm doing. And this guy walks in, and this guy is a giant of a man. He had to be 6'5", 6'6", huge, all muscles, all weight, and frightening looking because his entire face was pierced beyond belief. You could no longer see the outside of his ears because there was nothing but metal. Nose was pierced, septum was pierced, eyebrow was pierced. He had the things underneath his lips. He had metal everywhere. And to be honest with you, he was big enough and pierced enough, and I was afraid. Because I'm a 5'7" guy, just sitting there, not knowing what's going on at all. He comes into the store, runs to the back to go through the records, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I hope this guy is a nice guy. What am I supposed to do if he's mean? What am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do here. He comes up, he just stares at me, and I look up at him and I tell him, hi, it's my first night here, so let's see if we can figure out how to make things happen. And he still scowls at me, and he puts his record down on the counter. And it's the Bay City Rollers. Now, I don't care who you are. I love the Bay City Rollers. I had this exact same album when it first came out, and I told him that. I said, I had this album too. It's a good listen. And he smiled at me, and I was no longer afraid of him. The moment I saw him, I was terrified. But the Bay City Rollers, they brought us together. And I don't care who you are. In my book, if you're a Bay City Rollers fan, we're on the same team. These kind of stories work because you automatically create drama when you are changing how you see the world. Your audience gets to go with you from point A to point B, and they get to learn the lesson right alongside of you. Another question you can ask yourself is, when did I feel a strong emotion that surprised me? Pay attention to your emotional changes, your emotional spikes. Times when you're walking around your life and all of a sudden you are unexpectedly angry, or you're unexpectedly sad, or you start laughing out loud. These things don't happen in a vacuum. They happen for a reason. And I'll give you an example. I'm giving you too much information about myself. I apologize. But I think it'll help with the lessons. I live with depression, not all the time, but a lot of the time. I'm always just a tad sad, even when I'm smiling. Now, I was going through a really bad bout of depression, and I was working with a friend of mine. We were over at his house, and he made corn chips. He's a cook. He likes to cook things. So he got corn chips, he sprayed them with a little bit of olive oil, and then doused them with this lime pepper that he had found at H-E-B. That's our grocery store here in Austin. And these were fantastic. I thought they were amazing, and I told him so. But after I left visiting with him, my depression sank right back in. And all I wanted to do when I got home was just jump back in bed. I couldn't think of a reason to get up in the mornings. I couldn't even decide if I wanted to be here anymore. I didn't think the world would miss me if I was gone. It's about a week later, and Mark and I, my friend from before, we had to get together to meet again because we're working on a project together. And we get to my studio, and he sticks his hand in his pocket, and he pulls out a jar of that same lime pepper that he used to make those chips. And I just looked at him. He said, I was at the grocery store and I remember how much you liked this, so I just thought I'd get you one. And to him, it was just something he did. But he didn't realize that what he did for me was change how I felt about myself in that moment. Because what this meant is I had a friend who thought about me, even when I was nowhere near him. I just popped into his head, and he wanted to do something nice for me. And it changed how I felt about myself in that moment, because I realized that maybe I do matter, even when it's not obvious to me. That's the basics of that story. And while I am talking about lime pepper, the lime pepper isn't the focus of the story. The focus of the story is the emotional journey that I went on. Now, before we get to the third question, I'm going to ask you to do something. If this video has been helpful to you at all, please go down there and find the like button and give it a big old boop. I'd really appreciate that. The third question I want you to consider is, when were you in a position when you did not know what to do? Because moments of uncertainty, I'm trying to say uncertainty. I think I said it right there. Moments of confusion, being torn between two choices, A or B, the left or the right, the good or the bad, they create natural tension because we all make these choices. Our life is always a choice of whether we're going to do this or that. The time that you have to choose between two different job offers, two different dates, whether you're going to stay home or whether you're going to go out, whether you're going to have tacos or whether you're going to have cereal. These are stories of you standing in a crossroads, a literal crossroads, and you have to make a choice. Even if the choice is just a small choice, in that moment, it feels significant to you. That's why you're going back and forth between this one or that one. And that is something worth exploring. Now you're thinking about specific moments from your life. Your next step is crucial because what we need for you to do is to understand what your personal story is really about. Every good story has two layers to it. The external layer, everything that's happening, the events, everything that's on the outside, and the internal layer, how you feel about what you're talking about, how it resonates within you, the thoughts you were thinking, the choices you are making, what this means to you, and why it matters to you. That taps in to the universal human experience of finding meaning. In my lime pepper story, all that happened was a friend of mine bought me some lime pepper. He made some chips. I liked them. I said they were good. He said, thank you. And he gave me some lime pepper. That's all that happened. Those are the events. But that's not what that story meant to me. What it's really about, it's about a person learning to see value in him through someone else's eyes. It's about what it feels like to believe you're invisible, to believe that you don't matter, and like no one would notice if you were even gone. And it's about that same person realizing that he has someone who thinks about him when he is nowhere near him. It's about him getting to see himself through someone else's eyes. That's what the story is about. Now, one more thing before we finish up. When you are looking at your stories, never discount small details. Don't dismiss them. Keep them in mind because they're going to add color. In fact, it's the small details that make your story come alive. The best storytellers don't just tell you what happened. They put you there in the moment with them, with one or two additional details that help create the picture of the story they are telling. Be specific. So when you're mining your stories, pay attention to these small details. Like, did your mouth go dry? Is a storm coming? Or maybe there was a song that you love playing in the background. Now keep in mind, when I say add details, I am talking about one or two details. Please, whatever you do, don't tell us everything about the moment. We don't need it, and it will drown your story. That would get overwhelming for your audience very quickly. And once your audience is overwhelmed, they're going to lose interest in the story. Just one or two of these details will help the audience dive into that moment with you. And the details that you choose should be ones that are going to help us understand why this moment matters to you. Finding a story is not about having to live an extraordinary thrill ride of a life. It's about paying attention to the small, ordinary things in your life and looking at them through a storyteller's eyes. Remember these three questions and use them. When did I change my mind? When did I feel something surprising? When did I not know what to do? Look for the universal theme underneath that story and add a couple of small details that will help your story to come alive. I have homework for you. The homework is this: live your life. Pay attention, make notes, write things down, and don't worry if these ideas are great yet. They don't have to be. What I want you to get used to doing is looking at your life through a storyteller's eyes, because that's what your life is, a never-ending trail of stories. And to help you on your storytelling journey, I have another video for you to watch at the end of here somewhere. It'll be on here somewhere. It's about the difference between plot versus core in storytelling. Plot is about the external things, the things happening in the world, and the core is about the internal, about what this story means to you. You'll need both of them, and I'll show you how to make them both work together. That's it for now, folks. Adios.